Hello and welcome to the UPSC practice session for the upcoming prelims examination, which is scheduled on 31st of May. As already discussed, we'll be taking up 20 questions for this week. And in these 20 questions, the first 10 questions will be from your current affairs of the July month. And the next 10 questions will be from core part of our syllabus and from polity. So this is about what we are going to do in the video. However, let us first look at what should one look for in these videos, or what should be your understanding and what should be your takeaways from these videos. So first in this line, we'll be taking up various previous year questions related to that theme of either the current affairs or the static portion in the polity part. And by this, we'll be identifying important themes and topics for our preliminary examination. Second in this line, you should note that UPSC sometimes makes confusing options in various questions. So we'll also be looking at the approach for handling such questions in the real exam. Thirdly, we'll be looking at some of the approach or techniques for solving the questions in the preliminary examination. For example, you might be aware that one of the famous technique is elimination of statements which are wrong. So that is one way of solving the questions. So we'll also be looking at some other approaches or techniques for solving the questions in the preliminary examination. Now, besides the focus on identification of important topics and on studies, one should also be aware about the cutoffs of the previous years. So if you go through the cutoffs of the preliminary examination of 2018, it was about 98 marks out of 200, which stands approximately around 50% marks. So it should be your approach that you improve and maximize your score by improving your accuracy. So these videos will help you in improving your approach in terms of identifying important topics and also in terms of understanding the demand of questions that are given by the UPSC in its preliminary examinations. Now, besides having a good approach, practice is also important. So for practice, you can subscribe to any prelims test series, and in this line, you already note that Rao's IAS prelims test series is already up and running, and that will give you a lot of practice, and the questions in that test series have been created based on the approach that we will be discussing in this video. So in the description of this video, you will find a test and you should try and attempt that test from our prelims test series. Now this is the first video, and the second video related to the 10 questions of the static portion, that is polity, will be released soon. So let us start with this video.
So the first question that we are taking from the current affairs of the July month, of which we will be discussing the first 10 questions. The first question is related to the Law Commission of India. Now this question has been inspired from the previous year question of the year 2019. And in 2019, a question was asked related to the Office of Profit. And this Office of Profit was continuously in news in the year 2019 because it was related to the disqualification of the MLAs of Delhi's Legislative Assembly. And accordingly, if you notice, UPSC has asked a question in the preliminary examination of 2019 related to this Office of Profit. Now, before looking at the formation of this question, let us first read out this question. So it reads that, consider the following statements, and the first statement is that the Parliament Act of 1959 exempts several posts from the disqualification on the grounds of Office of Profit. Second is that the above mentioned act was amended 5 times. And the third statement is that the term Office of Profit is well defined in the Constitution of India. Now, for solving such kind of questions, it is not necessary that you remember each and every statement that is given in the question. So if you closely look at the third statement, it reads that the term Office of Profit is well defined in the Constitution of India. Now, by simply knowing that this term has not been defined in the Constitution of India, you can easily eliminate the options B, C and D. Hence, the correct answer that comes out is A, that is 1 and 2 only. So the statements 1 and 2 are correct, and you could have solved this question even when you did not know that this act was amended 5 times or not. So similarly, we have designed this question related to the Law Commission of India. Now, regarding the question that we have framed related to Law Commission of India, you should note that the Ministry of Law and Justice in the month of July had initiated the process of setting up of the 22nd Law Commission of India. So accordingly, we have found this question based on this current affair. So the question reads, which of the following statements is or are correct about the Law Commission of India? And in this, three statements are given. First is that it is a non-statutory body created by the government. The second statement is that since independence, 15 law commissions have been created. And the third statement is that the reports of Law Commission are binding on the Government of India. Now, just by knowing that, recently the Ministry of Law and Justice has initiated the process for formation of 22nd Law Commission, you can easily eliminate the second statement. And by eliminating this statement, you can easily eliminate the options A, C and D. Hence, the correct answer that comes out is B, that is one only, which is it is a non-statutory body which is created by the government. So this means that it is neither a constitutional body nor a statutory body. And hence the correct answer here is B, that is one only. So by simply knowing that the 22nd Law Commission is being formed now, you can easily eliminate the statement 2. So this question related to the Law Commission, which was in current affairs in the month of July, has been framed on the basis of a question which was asked in the year 2019, which was also formulated by the UPSC based on the current affairs related to the term Office of Profit. So the important takeaway from this discussion is that you should not judge any question in the actual preliminary examination based on the length of that question or the number of statements that are mentioned in that question. And secondly, rather than looking for correct statements in such kind of questions, you should first look for which all statements are wrong or incorrect according to your knowledge. And once you identify those wrong questions, you will be able to either eliminate most of the options or you will be able to zero down on two options. And after that, you can again apply your logic and knowledge and you can correctly answer such questions. And by doing this, you can maximize your number of attempts in the preliminary examination, and at the same time, you can also increase your accuracy of the attempts. Further, while revising the current affairs of different months, you should have in your mind the approach by which the UPSC has been formulating its question. And this series will help you in understanding that approach clearly. So after this, let us take up another question from the current affairs of July month. Now this second question is related to the HTBT cotton which is being cultivated in different parts of India despite a ban on the cultivation of this cotton crop. Now this question has been designed based on the question that was asked in the year 2012. And that question was related to the introduction of BT brinjal in India. Now this question reads, what are the reasons for the people's resistance to the introduction of BT brinjal in India? And the four statements are that the BT brinjal has been created by inserting a gene from a soil fungus into its genome. Second is that the seeds of BT brinjal are terminator seeds and therefore the farmers have to buy the seeds before every season from the seed companies. Thirdly, there is an apprehension that consumption of BT brinjal may have adverse impact on the health. And the fourth is that there is some concern that introduction of BT brinjal may have adverse effect on the biodiversity. Now here, the statements 3 and 4 are correct and statement 1 and 2 were incorrect. 1 was specifically incorrect because the BT is created by introduction of a gene which has been taken from soil bacteria and it is not taken from soil fungus. And it is also not a terminator seed. So this means that it can again be utilized for the next crop. Now the correct answer here was 3 and 4 only, that is C. Now if you look at this question that we have formulated based on the HTBT cotton, it reads, what are the concerns about HTBT cotton which is being widely cultivated despite a ban? First statement is that it is a genetically modified form of cotton which is resistant to pest attacks. Second is that it is a genetically modified form of cotton resistant to herbicides. Third is that it can lead to spread of herbicide tolerance, giving rise to super weeds. The fourth statement is that it may have an adverse impact on the health of animals in rural India. And we are asked to identify what are the concerns with the cultivation of HTBT cotton. Now here we note that BT cotton is already being cultivated legally in different parts of India. However, a new modification has been done to this BT cotton to make it herbicide tolerant. And this helps the farmers to spray herbicides to get rid of parasitic weeds in the farm without harming the main crop. So it mainly makes these HTBT cotton crops herbicide tolerant. Now, if you look at the first statement, it reads that it is a genetically modified form of cotton which is resistant to pest attacks. Second is that it is genetically modified form of cotton which is resistant to herbicides. Now, both these statements are correct in themselves, and these are the important characteristics of the HTBT cotton. However, this is not a cause of concern, and hence the statement 1 and statement 2 are incorrect in the context of this question. However, the third statement, which reads that it can lead to the spread of herbicide tolerance, giving rise to super weeds, is correct. This is because herbicide tolerance can easily spread through pollination, and eventually it can give rise to a variety of super weeds that are resistant to the existing set of herbicides which are used by the farmers. Now, this kind of herbicide resistance is similar to the antibiotic resistance that is being developed in human beings because of overuse of the antibiotics. Now, if you are able to identify that the statement 1 and 2 are incorrect, you can again eliminate the options A, B and D. So the correct answer that comes out here is C, that is 3 only. So you notice that the fourth statement that was given in this question was redundant. That is because it is not known to be adversely impacting the health of animals in rural areas or anywhere else. Now, what is the takeaway from this question? So first is that anytime you attempt a question in the preliminary examination, you should read the demand of the question carefully. So as we can see in this question, it talks about the concerns about the cultivation of HTBT cotton, and it does not talk about the characteristics or the advantages of this HTBT cotton. And hence, although the statements 1 and 2 look correct in the first glance, they are not correct in the context of the requirement of the question. So this question is similar to the one which was asked in the year 2012 regarding the reason for the resistance of the people for the introduction of BT brinjal in India. With this, let's take up the next question now. Now, the third question is based on the question that was asked in the prelims of 2018. And in the year 2018, the question read, what is terminal high altitude area defense, that is THAAD, sometimes seen in the news? Now, regarding THAAD system, it should be noted that it was in news in that year because the United States of America had deployed this anti-missile system in the Korean Peninsula because of increasing tensions between North Korea and South Korea. And here the correct answer was C, that is, it is an American anti-missile system. Now, if you look at the options that were given by the UPSC in this question, the first is that it is an Israeli radar system. Second is that it is India's indigenous anti-missile program. And the fourth option is that it is a defense collaboration between Japan and South Korea. Now, anti-missile programs are generally in news, and hence the option was designed as it might be an India's indigenous anti-missile program. Further, the Israel-Palestine conflict is almost in news every year, and that is why this option was also designed. And this question has been designed based on the S-400 triumph sometimes seen in the news. So the options are that it is an indigenous missile defense system developed by the Defense Research Development Organization. Second is that it is the anti-satellite system recently tested by India. Third is that it is a defense collaboration between United States of America and India. And the fourth option is that it is an advanced long-range air defense missile system developed by Russia. Now, most of the options that have been designed in this question are based on the recent happenings only. For example, the first option is that it is an indigenous missile defense system, and this has been designed because India is trying to acquire a missile defense system. However, it is not an indigenous missile defense system. Now, the second option is that it is the anti-satellite system recently tested by India. And we know that recently India had tested the anti-satellite system under its Mission Shakti. Now, although this statement is correct in itself, however, it is wrong in the context of the question, and hence the option B and A are incorrect. Further, various defense agreements between India and the United States of America have also been in news in this year. However, they are not related to this term S-400 Triumph, and hence the C option is also correct. So the correct answer here is that it is an advanced long-range air defense missile system which has been developed by Russia. And in this context, India is trying to acquire this missile defense system which has been developed by the Russia. However, this move of India has been opposed by the United States of America. And the US has cautioned India that the S-400 deal could attract sanctions under the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act or the CAATSA Act. And this act of America restricts any defense purchases by any country from Russia, Iran or North Korea. And that is why this S-400 Triumph missile system, which India was trying to acquire from Russia, was in news because the United States of America had cautioned that India will face sanctions if this defense deal goes through. So while answering such questions, you should be careful that you do not fall for other options which seem correct in the first place, however, are not related to the actual requirement of the question. And with this, let's take up the next question now. Now, this fourth question is based on the previous year question that was asked in the year 2017. And this question read, what is the purpose of ELISA or Evolved Laser Interferometer Space Antenna? Now, the options that were given in this question were to detect neutrinos, to detect gravitational waves, and to detect the effectiveness of missile defense system, and to study the effect of solar flares on our communication systems. Now, all the options that are given in this question are sometimes seen in the news regularly. So while answering such questions, you have to carefully read the options that are given. And only after reading all the four options, you should decide as to what is the main requirement of the question. So here, if you look at the first option, that is to detect the neutrinos. So in the year 2017, the projects related to the detection of neutrinos were also in news. However, they were not related to the ELISA project. And this ELISA project was related to the detection of gravitational waves. So the correct answer was B. So let us look at this question. So it reads, what is the purpose of NASA's Punch and Tracers mission, sometimes seen in the news or recently seen in the news? Now again, the options that are given in this question are to detect the gravitational waves, secondly to capture the image of the black holes, to trace the underground water on moon, and the last option is to enhance our understanding of sun. So as you might be knowing that in this year, the capturing of image of black hole was also in news. However, it was not related to NASA's Punch and the Tracers mission. So avoid this tendency for falling for those options which are sometimes seen in the news. However, they are not related to the requirement of the question. So regarding this question, you should note that these two missions of NASA were in news in order to enhance our understanding of the sun. And in this, the NASA's Punch is a landmark mission that will image regions beyond the sun's outer corona. However, the Tracers mission will study how the magnetic fields around the Earth interact with those of the sun. So by this, you should understand that you should carefully read the options before answering the question, and also not fall for those options which are also in news, however, are not related to the requirement of the question. After this, let's take up the next question. Now, this fifth question is related to the fourth Tiger census that was conducted, and its report was released in the month of July. Now, if you look at the questions related to Tiger census in the year 2018, a question was asked related to the location of Pakhui Wildlife Sanctuary. Now, this Pakhui Wildlife Sanctuary became a tiger reserve in the year 2002, and it is located in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. So if you look at this question related to the fourth Tiger census, it reads, in the fourth Tiger census, which of the following tiger reserves have reported no tigers? And we have three tiger reserves that are Buxa, Dampa and Palamau. So while reading the fourth Tiger census, you might find that these were the 3 tiger reserves where no tigers were reported. And this particular aspect becomes extremely important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Hence, the correct answer here was D, that is 1, 2, and 3. Now, besides this information that is provided in this question, you should also be aware that this Buxa Tiger Reserve is located in the state of West Bengal. Secondly, the Dampa is located in the state of Mizoram, and the Palamau is located in the state of Jharkhand. So the locations of these 3 tiger reserves also becomes important for us from the upcoming preliminary examinations point of view. And that is because no tigers have been reported from these tiger reserves in the 4th tiger census. Besides this, you should also note that biggest increase in the number of tigers have been observed from Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Uttarakhand. So this can also be another important aspect which should be kept in mind. Besides this, the states like Chhattisgarh and Mizoram have reported a decline in the number of tigers. However, the number of tigers in the state of Odisha have been same, or they have remained constant in this tiger reserve. So this change or increase or zero reporting of tigers are important aspects for us from the preliminary examination point of view, and especially the location of these 3 tiger reserves, because no tigers have been reported. With this, let's take up the next question. Now, the 6th question is related to the African Continental Free Trade Area. And this African Continental Free Trade Area was finalized in May 2019, and it became operational, or its operational phase started in the month of July in 2019. And this becomes important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. However, before solving this question, let us look at how questions have been asked based on important trade agreements and also on important international relations related areas. Now, if you look at these questions, this first question was asked in the year 2018. And this question required us to identify which of these countries are the free trade partners of the ASEAN. Now, this was asked in the context of the 25th anniversary of collaboration that these free trade partners were celebrating with the ASEAN grouping. Also, these 6 free trade partners were negotiating the RCEP agreement with the ASEAN. And if you knew that USA and Canada are not the part of ASEAN free trade partners, you could have easily eliminated the options A, B, and D. So the correct answer was C here. Now, what is important to note here is that India is also a free trade partner of ASEAN, and India was also negotiating the RCEP with the ASEAN grouping. So the takeaway is that wherever India's economic interest or the trade interests lie are important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Again, if you look at this question, it was asked in the year 2017, and it was asked related to Indian Ocean Rim Association for Regional Cooperation. Now here the statements mentioned that it was established very recently in response to the incidents of piracy and accidents of the oil spill. Second statement is that it is an alliance meant for maritime security only. And if you were aware about the basic objective of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, you would note that it envisages open regionalism in the Indian Ocean region, and its main focus is economic cooperation. And hence, you could have easily eliminated both these statements. So the correct answer was D here, that is neither 1 nor 2. Now again, it is an initiative in which India has its own economic and trade interests. Further, in the year 2016, a question was asked related to India-Africa Summit. And as we all know that India is trying to diversify its trade markets, and hence this summit was extremely important, which took place in the year 2015. Further, in 2017, a question was asked related to Broad-Based Trade and Investment Agreement, that is BTIA, which is sometimes seen in the news. And it was in news because India is negotiating a trade deal with the European Union under this agreement. Further, the last question that we see on the screen was asked in the year 2015. And this asks that India is a member of which of the following organizations. Now, if you note that Association of Southeast Asians, India is not a member of the ASEAN grouping. And hence you can easily eliminate A and C. And we know that India is a free trade partner of this ASEAN grouping. So the correct answer here is 3 only. Now, what does this analysis signify, or what is the takeaway from analysis of these questions that were asked previously in the preliminary examinations? So here we understand that in the preliminary examination, questions can be asked from those areas or those groupings and organizations where India's economic and trade interests lie, or from those organizations where India is also a member. Hence, we have formulated this question, which reads that consider the following statements about the recently established African Continental Free Trade Area. So the first statement here reads that it has been signed by all the African Union countries, and the second statement is that it would be the largest trade group since the creation of World Trade Organization, and this largest trade group will be by the number of countries. So these are the two statements given here. Now this is important for us because India had extended $15 million as a grant assistance to Niger. And India provided this assistance because Niger was organizing the upcoming African Union Summit in July 2019. And it was at this summit in Niger in July 2019 that the African Continental Free Trade Area was operationalized. Now, why did India forward this assistance to Niger for hosting of the African Union Summit? So here we should understand that India has already been diversifying its foreign trade markets in order to improve its exports. And that is why African continent becomes extremely important for India's trade interests. So after understanding the importance of this African Continental Free Trade Area, let us try and answer this question. Now the first statement is that it has been signed by all the African Union countries. Now this statement is incorrect because initially Nigeria and South Africa did not show their interest to join the African Continental Free Trade Area. However, recently both these countries have joined. But as of now, out of the 55 African Union countries, only 54 countries have signed this African Continental Free Trade Area agreement. And the only country which has not signed this agreement is Eritrea. Second unique fact about this free trade area agreement is that it would be the largest trade group by the number of countries since the creation of World Trade Organization. And this signifies that it will be one of the important economic trade groups for world trade. So in this analysis, we understood that questions can be asked from those agreements or international organizations of which either India is a part or in which India's economic or trade interests lie. And hence, this African Continental Free Trade Area becomes extremely important for us from the preliminary examination, and particularly because it would be the largest trade group by the number of countries joining it since the creation of World Trade Organization. With this, let's take up the next question now. Now, the seventh question reads that dumping of red mud is an increasing cause of concern because of its potential to pollute water, land, and air. Which of the following statements is correct about the red mud? Now, this question has been inspired from two previous year questions that were asked in the year 2013. And the first question read, due to the improper or indiscriminate disposal of old and used computers or their parts, which of the following are released into the environment as e-waste? So if you look at this question, 7 chemicals have been provided in this question. However, if you knew that heptachlor is an insecticide, you could have easily eliminated the options A, C and D. And the correct answer would have been B, that is 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6 only. Again, the second question reads, which of the following can be found as pollutants in the drinking water in some parts of India? Now, it is important to note that formaldehyde is not a river pollutant. And hence, by this, we can eliminate the options B and D easily. However, if we know that uranium is an important pollutant in different parts of India or some parts of India, you could have easily known that C is the option where all the 1, 3 and 5, that is arsenic, fluoride and uranium is present. So correct answer here was C. So these questions highlight the importance of pollution related questions which are affecting different parts of India. And accordingly, we see that this question also talks about red mud, which is an important cause of concern because of its pollution to pollute water, land and air. Now the options that are given here are that it is the red soil which has high laterite content. Second is that it is produced during the aluminium production process. Third is that it is widely found on the ocean floor. And fourth is that it is produced during cement production process. Now first question has been designed to confuse you because it has the same wording, that is red soil, and the question talks about red mud. So never fall for such options. Second is that it is produced during aluminum production process, and third is that it is widely found on the ocean floor. Now students with geography optional might easily get confused with this option that is given here. This is because red clay is one of the deposits that is found on the ocean floor. However, this red mud is different from that red clay, and hence C is not the option. Now the correct answer here is that it is produced during the aluminium production process. And this red mud is a solid waste which is produced or formed after the alumina production from bauxite by the use of Bayer's process. Now regarding the pollution causing concern, it should be noted that more than 120 million tons of red mud is generated annually all over the world, and about 4 million tons is produced in India. And as India is one of the major producers of alumina in the world, this production of red mud is a cause of concern, which is a byproduct in the aluminium production process. And this was in news in the month of July because the government of India had held a conference to tackle this problem of red mud production and how to utilize or better utilize this red mud produced in the aluminium production process so that it does not pollute water, land and air. So here we have understood that important pollution related issues are important, and specifically pollutants are extremely important for the preliminary examination. And secondly, carefully look for all the options that are given there and do not fall for most famous or commonly known options. With this, let's take up the next question. Now this 8th question is related to improvement in India's ranking in the Global Innovation Index of 2019. And in this context, India has climbed 5 notches on this index this year, and it has now reached 52nd position among the 129 countries which were ranked on the basis of more than 80 indicators. So the question asks us to identify as to which of the organization publishes this Global Innovation Index. So before answering this question, let us first look at the way in which UPSC has been asking questions related to important indices. So if you look at these previous year questions, you will find that in the year 2019, there were 2 questions related to important indices or reports. Further, previously also, almost every year UPSC has been asking questions based on important indices. For example, this question was asked in the year 2017 and this question was asked in the year 2016. So if you look at the questions that were asked in 2016 and 2019, both the questions are very similar because they are based on ease of doing business index. However, in 2016, the question was that which of the following declares or releases this ranking based on ease of doing business. However, in the year 2019, it asks as to which of the following is not a sub-index in the World Bank's ease of doing business. So this highlights that previous year questions can also give you a direction as to what can be asked in the future preliminary examinations. And that is why solving previous year questions becomes extremely important for everyone who is preparing seriously for the preliminary examination. So in this case, in the 2016 question, the answer was World Bank. And the answer in 2019 was maintenance of law and order. Further, if you look at the question that was asked in 2017, it reads which of the following gives global gender gap index ranking to the countries of the world. And the correct answer here was World Economic Forum. Again, in the year 2019, a question was asked related to global competitiveness report, and it is published by which of the following. So here also the answer was World Economic Forum. Now there are some important international organizations and their indices are extremely important. So in this case, you should always go through all the indices which are released by World Economic Forum, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, etc. And the compilation of these indices will be provided in your prelims compass of Indian economy. So do go through that and try and learn each and every index that is given there. And that will help you or make it easy for you to answer that is asked in the preliminary examination. Now this question that we have framed requires us to identify the organization which releases this Global Innovation Index. And this becomes important for the upcoming preliminary examination because India's ranking has improved in this Global Innovation Index. So it should be noted that the correct answer here is World Intellectual Property Organization or WIPO. So the WIPO releases this Global Innovation Index, and it releases this index in association with the Cornell University and the Graduate Business School INSEAD. So again, it needs to be reiterated that questions have been asked regularly based on important indices in almost every year in the preliminary examination. And that is why these indices are extremely important, and you should go through the prelims compass of Indian economy to have a grip on important indices which are released by important international organizations like the World Economic Forum, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and World Intellectual Property Organization. After this, let us take up the next question. Now, the ninth question is related to the GAFA tax which was in news in the month of July. And the question reads, which among the following countries has recently imposed the GAFA tax on large internet-based technological companies? So here you should note that French Parliament passed the legislation to impose this GAFA tax, and it has been named after the Google, Apple, Facebook and Amazon. And this tax will be imposed on large technology and internet companies which are having business operations in France. And if you look at this question which was asked in the previous year, in the year 2018, it was related to India's decision to levy an equalization tax of 6% on online advertisements. Now this GAFA tax which has been imposed by France is similar to the equalization tax which was imposed by India in its budget of 2018. Now this equalization levy in the budget of 2018 was imposed on those companies which are resident in India and are non-resident companies which have permanent establishment in India. And it was imposed on these companies if they place digital ads on social media platforms which operate outside India like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. So in that case, if the payment amount for these advertisements by the companies of India exceeds more than 1 lakh rupees, then the government will deduct an equalization levy of 6% on such payments. And this is because these social media giants are getting their income through their operations in India. However, they were not paying any taxation as of now. And that is why the government of India imposed this equalization levy of 6%. So if you look at this question, the question reads, with reference to India's decision to levy an equalization tax of 6% on online advertisement services offered by non-resident entities, which of the following statements is or are correct? The first is that it is introduced as a part of the Income Tax Act, which is incorrect. And this is because it was introduced as a part of the Finance Act. Second is that the non-resident entities that offer advertisement services in India can claim tax credit in their home country under the Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement, which is also incorrect because there is no such provision of claiming tax credit under the Double Taxation Avoidance Agreements regarding this equalization tax. And hence the correct answer here was D, that is neither one nor two. So similar to this equalization levy of India, France has imposed this GAFA tax, which is the Google, Apple, Facebook and Amazon tax, on those companies which are operating in France and they are earning profits by their operation in France. So that is why this can be also important for us from the preliminary examination. And as we have already learned, the answer here is C, that is France. With this, let's take up the next question. Now the 10th and the last question in the current affairs section is related to buyback tax which was introduced in the union budget of 2019 and 20. Now this question has been framed based on the question that was asked in the year 2017, and that was related to goods and services tax which was introduced that year. So if you look at this question, it reads, which is or are the most likely advantages of implementing the goods and services tax. So the first statement here reads that it will replace multiple taxes collected by multiple authorities and will create a single market in India. Now this statement was correct because it has been created to subsume the indirect taxes in India or multiple indirect taxes in India. Secondly, the second statement reads it will drastically reduce the current account deficit of India and will enable it to increase its foreign exchange reserves. Now this statement was incorrect because although GST was supposed to have a good impact on the fiscal deficit of the government budget and which would have resulted in a long-term benefit for the current account deficit, however, the foreign exchange reserves depend on various other factors and which can include the improvement in the exports of India or the export competitiveness of the India and how the global economy is doing. So that is why this statement was incorrect. And the third statement is that it will enormously increase the growth and size of Indian economy and will enable it to overtake China in the near future. Now this statement also was incorrect because it is a speculative kind of statement. So now this question reads, consider the following statements related to the buyback tax which was introduced in the Union Budget of 2019 and 20. The first statement is that it is a tax which is required to be paid by the companies on buying back its share from the shareholders, which is a correct statement. Second statement is that this tax has been introduced by replacing the dividend distribution tax. Now this statement is important because this buyback tax has not been introduced by replacing the dividend distribution tax. However, it has been introduced to plug the differential tax treatment between the buybacks and the dividend payouts, and that is why the budget introduced the tax on buyback for listed companies as well. Now, buyback is an action of the companies in which they buy back their shares from the existing shareholders, and this is usually done at a price which is higher than the market price. And when the companies buy these shares back, the number of shares outstanding in the market reduces. Further, the dividend distribution is a specified amount per share that is paid out to the shareholders every year. Now, the difference between the buyback and the dividend distribution is that buyback is optional in nature. However, the companies have to distribute their dividend every year. Now, the issue here was that earlier, the companies which used to distribute their dividends had to pay a dividend distribution tax to the government of India. And what these companies used to do is that they used to buy back these shares from the promoters of the company itself. Now, what happened due to this is that they were not required to pay any tax on that. So, in order to remove this anomaly in the buyback and the dividend distribution, the government in the Union Budget of 2019 and 20 introduced the buyback tax. To understand this better, you should go through the Focus magazine of July month, where the buyback tax has been described or explained in the detail. So the correct answer here is 1 only. So here you should understand that whenever the government of India introduces any new kind of tax in its union budget, it becomes extremely important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. For example, when the goods and services tax was introduced in 2017, a question was asked in the preliminary examination. So similarly, you can expect a question related to buyback tax. And as we have seen in the previous question, a question was asked when an equalization levy was introduced in the budget in the prelims of 2018. Now with this, we conclude the discussion of 10 important current affairs of the month of July. And in the next week, we will take up another 10 questions from the current affairs of July. So we hope by now you have understood the approach by which you should read the current affairs, keeping in mind the previous year questions. And that will make your study even more channelized and purposeful.
So with this, we conclude the first part of this session. Stay tuned for the second part, which will have 10 questions of the polity, which will be released soon.